Hello viewers, welcome again to today's celebrations of the World Water Day with the theme on groundwater. In my earlier interaction, I had discussed the occurrence, distribution and ecology of groundwater. Picking up a thread, let us first talk about the have and the have-nots in our society. When we compare two different societies, that is the Western world and the Africa and the developing country, so we find there is lot of disparity between the water we use and the water we waste. On average, people in European use more than 200 liters of water per day. In United States, more than 400 liters. And in developing countries, 1.1 billion people do not have access to drinking water, and they use only up to 5 liters, that is 1/10 of the average daily amount used in rich countries to flush toilets. So imagine the disparity here. Some people have excess of water and some people are deprived for even drinking water. So on your screens now you can see a child is sitting near a water hole waiting that to draw some water from it. And in the second we see that a child is drinking water from stagnant pool which is full of mud, which is murky water. So what does this indicate? That there is so much of scarcity in some areas of water in some areas of the world. I would like to discuss example of India with you. And when we look at the land area of India, we find only 2.45% of world's land area is occupied by India. And India has 4% of world's fresh water resources and 18% of world's population. So still we are having such a small area, but our population is so large that India is the largest user of groundwater in the world. It uses an estimated 230 cubic kilometers of groundwater per year, which is over a quarter of the total global use. That is, out of 100%, India is using 25% of the groundwater. And more than out of this water that we are using, more than 60% of is used for irrigated agriculture, and 85% of drinking water supplies are dependent on groundwater. Now, if we look at the food scenario and the production and which will include the production and the population, what do we find? That in 2013 to 14, our production was 264 metric tons and our population was high. Whereas our population was 1.13 billion. And what is now predicted that in year 2050, our population would be 1.64 billion. Therefore, the food requirement would be 450 metric tons. That is, it will be almost double of what was needed in 2013-2014. So that means when our food requirement would be so high, that means the projected water demand will be very high. And this water we will be demanding. Why? Because we need this water to carry out the agricultural activities, to carry out the industrial work. We need it for drinking purposes. We need it for domestic use. So what we find that by year 2050, we shall be needing around 1,447 billion cubic meter of water, which is very high. And look at the irony of the situation. There is a very wicked water energy nexus. That is, we need water for producing energy. That is, water is needed for extraction of metals and their refining. We need water for fuel production like ethanol and hydrogen. We need water for hydropower. We need water for thermal electric cooling. So water is needed for energy, and on the other hand, energy is needed for water. Why is energy needed for water? Because the water which we've used in industries or when we are having groundwater, it may not be drinkable. So we have to treat it. We have to treat the groundwater for making it drinkable. We have to do wastewater treatment. And therefore, energy is associated with uses of water. So what do we find? That this is a very important nexus. That is, water can't do without energy and energy can't do without water. That is, both are interdependent. So if one is increasing, if our demand for energy is increasing, that is, our demand for water will also increase. And if our demand for water is increasing, the energy will also increase exponentially. So now these are the some disturbing statistics which UNESCO has given about India. So according to UNESCO World Water Development Report, India is the largest extractor of water, groundwater in the world. 2/3 of the total amount of groundwater is extracted in Asia, with India, China, Pakistan, Iran and Bangladesh as major consumers. 21 major cities of India are expected to run out of groundwater as soon as 2022-23. That is this year and next year. Isn't it shocking? What will happen? It will affect about 100 million people. Imagine life without water. About 75% of households do not have drinking water at home. 84% rural households do not have piped water access. And 70% of India's water is contaminated. With the country currently ranked 120 among 122 in the water quality index. So imagine, there are, when we are talking of 122 countries, where does India stand? India stands far below. That is, here the water quality index is very, very poor. So as a result of that, what happens? 40% of patients in hospitals in India are due to contaminated water. Groundwater of 1/3 of districts is unfit for drinking. Not only this, this water has high content of fluoride, arsenic and iron, and this is so much high that it is higher than the tolerance levels. Not only this, water bodies are infested with bacteria, viruses and parasites, with the result we hear every second day that I have a water infection. So this slide basically summarizes the water crisis and the Indian scenario. That is, half the population does not have potable water. Water is infested with parasites, so we have lot of infections. People do not have drinking water, the pipes are not coming there. We do not have piped water, so people have to go to larger areas to fill up water, which really puts a drain on the person, and it drains the person is not able to do other productive work. By 2030, the country's water demand is projected to be twice the available supply, implying severe water scarcity for the hundreds of millions and an eventual loss of around 6% of the country's GDP. So when coming back to India, so you will find that in rural areas, women and children go early morning to fetch water, sometimes say from 20 kilometers where there is a well. So the most of the time is going in procuring water, that is potable water. That means these women and children are not educated. They are deprived of basic needs, that is education and happiness and some me time, that is they can give some time to themselves, which is not there. So now let us talk of the global perspective. So when we talk of the global perspective, recent studies by NASA's Gravity Recovery and Climate Experiment GRACE satellite mission have tracked the Earth's mass over space and time and have found large changes in the amount of water stored underground through change in mass. This Nature Climate Change satellite-based analysis report, The Global Groundwater Crisis by James Femiglietti, a leading hydrologist at the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory, warns, and I quote, "Most of the major aquifers in the world's arid and semi-arid zones, that is, in the dry parts of the world that rely most heavily on groundwater, are experiencing rapid rates of groundwater depletion." The groundwater of some of the world's largest aquifers in the US High Plains, California's Central Valley, China, India is being pumped out at far greater rates than it can be replenished. Most of the major aquifers in the world's arid and semi-arid zones, that is in the dry parts of the world that rely most heavily on groundwater, are experiencing rapid rates of groundwater depletion. The most worrisome fact is that all of these areas are the world's great agricultural regions and are the food baskets with high productivity. It is precisely these semi-arid regions which experience the chances of civilization threatening mega droughts. This will result in food shortages. Like money in the bank, groundwater sustains societies through the lean times of little incoming rain and snow. Hence, without a sustainable groundwater reserve, global water security is a far greater risk than is currently recognized. Thus, although groundwater is invisible, its impact is visible on the ground. So this is a clear writing on the wall. This hidden treasure must be cherished, as it will become more critical by the day due to climate change and population growth. It has been said we are going to run out of water before we run out of oil. So what is there? The writing is very clear that we must preserve water. So what needs to be done to make groundwater sustainable? Technology should be used extensively for determining the relationship between surface hydrological units and those units below the ground. Identification of groundwater recharge areas and mapping of groundwater should be done. Artificial recharge of tube wells, water reuse, afforestation, scientific methods of agriculture should be done. That is, we should recharge the tube wells artificially, water should be reused, forests should be planted so that they retain water and the water table goes up, and we should use scientific methods of agriculture. Then not only this, we should impart key hydrogeological skills to non-profit bodies and rural practitioners to improve decentralized water management. That is, the control of the water should not be centralized. It should be the skills should be imparted to the non-profit bodies also and to rural people also, so that they can manage their water well. Another way of efficiently using groundwater is by encouraging farmers to adopt micro irrigation techniques such as drip irrigation and micro sprinklers. Bottom-up approach by empowering the local community to become active participants in managing groundwater. Creating regulatory options at the community and level, such as panchayat, is also one among the feasible solutions. Traditional methods of water conservation should be encouraged to minimize the depletion of water resources. Government of India has initiated schemes like DRIP program, more drop per crop Krishi Sinchai Yojana to ensure economical water use practices in agriculture. Central Groundwater Board CGWB, which is constituted by Ministry of Jal Shakti Department of Water Resources, River Development, Rejuvenation, Government of India, has a mandate to develop and disseminate technologies and monitor and implement national policies for the scientific and sustainable development and management of India's groundwater resources. This includes groundwater exploration, assessment, conservation, argumentation, protection from pollution and distribution based on the principles of economic and ecological efficiency and equity. So what is the vision now? The vision is that of sustainable development and management of groundwater resources of the country. So till now we've seen that water management is very important. That first of all, the groundwater or water is not distributed evenly throughout the world. Some areas are very rich in water, whereas others are very poor. And this disparity is giving rise to scarcity in some areas. For example, Western countries, America and the Western countries are using huge amount of water. Why so? Because their diet is so, that is, they are using non-vegetarian diet. And we know that it takes liters and liters of water to purify that meat products. Whereas in developing countries, there is shortage of water. Why? Because the population is high, there is pollution, and because of this, the water is becoming scarce day by day. So now we need to take an action. That is, people should be encouraged to become vegan or at least vegetarian, so there is less consumption of non-vegetarian food, and there is more consumption of vegetarian food. And we should also restrict our pollutants. That is, we should treat the industrial waste before discharging them into fresh water. We should use less of harmful fertilizers and pesticides. We should switch to biodegradable pesticides and fertilizers, which will be less water polluting and which will not harm the groundwater. Our aim should be to preserve this groundwater so that it is available for our future generation. So we can conclude by saying that it is not a single action that can increase the groundwater or which can preserve water. So it is no single action, whether community-based legislation, traditional water harvesting systems, or market forces will in itself elevate the global water crisis order, for that matter, in India. The effective answer to the freshwater crisis is to integrate conservation and development activities from water extraction to water management at the local level, making communities aware and involving them fully. This is critical for success. That means What should be our aim from today onwards, that is today's World Water Day 2022, that we should go on to techniques and we should integrate, conserve and develop activities which will be useful. That is the way we extract the water, the way we manage it, the way we use it, and while we are doing it, the bureaucrats or the policy makers are doing it, they should share this knowledge at the root level, at the local level, making communities totally aware as to water crisis. And that is what will be critical for success for preserving water. All this will ultimately pave the way for combining conservation of the environment with the basic need of the people. So that means we have to get together. All of us have to get together, because you know that water has no bars. It travels trans-territories. That is, we say that we are providing water from India is going to Pakistan. Brahmaputra's water is coming from China to India, that is Bay of Bengal. So the water has to be conserved at all levels. And that means the water should not be polluted. Because if the water is polluted at the source, when it is crossing inter-boundaries, when it goes to a different country, that water will also be polluted and it will be unfit for drinking purposes. So what is the objective of this World Water Day? The objective is making invisible visible. That is, underground water is invisible, but its impact on our daily life is visible. And we should make every strata of people in the world aware of this crisis, that if we do not conserve water, if we do not use it discreetly, that day will not be far away when there will be no water on the earth, and that is potable water on the earth. And we will say, water, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. That is, we will not be able to use that. So now let us look into another fact. What you can see on your screens is a woman drinking water from a tap. So don't you think it comes immediately to your mind that when a person is thirsty or he is parched, a drop of water is worth more than a pot of gold to a thirsty man. So when we talk of water, it is just not about water. When we are talking of conserving water, saving water, recycling water, reusing water, not wasting water, we have a common practice, and which I am sure you must be also doing, that when you brush your teeth, you often leave the tap open. That is water running while you are brushing your teeth. Have you realized how much water you are wasting? You are wasting liters and liters of water, which can be used by a person who is living in an area where there is water scarcity. When we wash our utensils, we tend to use large amount of detergents, and then we use liters of water to remove that detergent. So we have to change our habits so that we can protect water, we can save water. So when I say it is just not about water, when we are talking about saving water, what are we talking about? We are talking about a healthy person. We are talking about the economy of the country. We are talking about, and when the economy of the country is good, what are we talking? We can give education to the person. We can give education to the deprived children and deprived women who are deprived of education and basic amenities, because more than half of their life goes arranging water for their families. And in the process, their health is also neglected because they walk miles and miles daily carrying water on their heads. So when we are saving water, what are we doing? We are seeing that the country develops as a whole. That is, the health of the population will be good. The economy of the country will be good. More people will be literate. And when more people are literate, they are healthy, they are economically good, they have access to water, the country will be happy and it will flourish. So what is the main objective now? We have to save water. Why do we have to save water? Because we want to save life. And as I said, that one cannot survive without water even for a day. You go on a fast. You can stay without food from day to night, but one cannot stay without H2O, which is so simple. The symbol, the molecular formula of water is so different, so small, H2O, yet it is the savior of life. We cannot think of life without water. So again, I want to repeat, I want to emphasize, I want to drill it in your minds that writing on the wall is clear. We have to save water. We have to use it discreetly if we want to save our future generations from wiping out. We cannot afford the Mother Earth to dry up and wipe out all forms of life from Earth. So please, let us take an oath today that we will save water and we will be aware of the fact that we have to make aware everyone about groundwater, the invisible water. We have to make an effort to make it collectively, everyone, visible, invisible into visible to sustain life on earth. Thank you.